the time. Quit harvesting, and our whole garden gets to benefit from that. Look at this mess we've got going on right here. So we've got this lovely tea rose here, but also the loofah and also a tomato. Isn't that funny? I don't necessarily love this. I don't want all these other plants taking over my rows, but I'll deal with this another day. We are long overdue for an update on the loofah tunnel. It has put on lots of more blooms, and just, I mean, there's countless loofah in here right now of all different sizes and maturities. So this really is the first crispy brown loofah that I have ever had on a plant. Now, this is only my second year growing loofah, but last year I got a little bit of a late start on the loofah, and I did end up with one crispy brown one, but it was after the first frost, so I don't know if it died because of the frost or what, but I want to pop that open with you guys. See if I can get it off without breaking it. Here are the seeds in there. Ooh, I need something to collect these because I do want to save the seed. Last year when we harvested the loofah, I harvested and processed them green, and it was a pretty easy process. I'll share that video in the description box of this one. Wow. It actually smells sweet. Last year when I had my brown loofah, I think it was starting to break down, and it genuinely smelled like the ocean. I know a lot of people assume that loofah comes from the sea because it does look like a sea sponge, but it also can smell like the sea as well. It was really bizarre. I was like, where am I? So there it is. You can still hear the seeds in there. Oh, here we go. Now they're coming out. See those? We've got some that are black and some that are white. From what I've heard, the black ones are the ones that are viable and the white ones are not viable. I would say this is probably the most convenient seed saving I've ever done. This is very simple. So that's what I've gotten, and there's still some left in there that I'm gonna mess with later. I've got some other things that I want to do in the garden today. I can't remember how many seeds were in the seed packet where I got this seed from, but it was probably about 20 to 25 seeds in the packet, and there's at least 10, 20 packets worth in here, so doesn't look like we'll have to buy them again, which is awesome. I think I'm gonna leave the rest of the loofah on here to get dry and crispy on the vine, and I'll deal with them at a later date. So because I have had so much going on inside of our greenhouse to get ready for fall planting, I've pretty much ignored this garden. I used to call this our raised bed garden because it used to be the only raised bed garden that we had on our homestead, and now it's just the oldest raised bed garden that we have. It's not particularly old. These shorter beds went in 2015. The previous owner of the house put these in, and I'm pretty sure that they were treated wood. But the soil in here is nice. There's Jackie, he's come to join us. And I've basically quit harvesting out here, and I want to kind of see how big we can get these scallop squash. We just harvested a whole bunch of Dutch fork pie pumpkins, and the kids were all excited about carving them, which really, I guess you could do, but the wall on those is so thick that I feel like it would be a little bit difficult to get a jack-o'-lantern out of them, and plus it would kind of feel like a waste. You can eat jack-o'-lantern type pumpkins. They're just not, you know, the sweetest. These particular pumpkins are bred to be a pie pumpkin. That's what they are. And so I figured maybe if I let 4, 5, 6 of these get to maturity and get a hard exterior, it might be kind of fun to have scallop-shaped jack-o'-lanterns this year. So we've got these. I'm just going to leave them on. There's some big squash over on the yellow one as well. Over here, my Ginger's Pride melon has succumbed. I don't exactly know to what. It does have these spots on it. It could be blight. I'm not really sure. I have smelled the melons and they do not smell ripe. That's one of the telltale signs to know that your melon is ready. If it smells good and sweet and musky like a melon does. These just kind of smell like cucumbers right now, so they're not really developed enough yet. I've picked some okra, but I've got a big bag of okra in the fridge, that I don't really know exactly what I'm gonna do with. So I think I'm just gonna leave these on here. They sure are pretty. But this space I would like to plant today. I have been talking about how I need to finish the hoop house out here, and you know, I don't think I'm actually gonna do that. Here comes Jackie to illustrate exactly what I was trying to do here. I wanted to keep not only the cats out of this bed, but also potentially like cabbage worms. I thought maybe I would plant some cabbage out here, but what I've got in these start trays is actually some rutabaga here, and then over here I have some beets. Now I have not started roots in a start tray before, but I have seen other people do it with success, so I figured I would do that. And historically I haven't seen cabbage loopers or cabbage moths bother crops like these, and so there won't really be too much of a need to put fabric over the plants here. We're just going to keep the kitties out, and I have a different solution for that. Jackie may or may not leave us alone. Go on. We're trying to plant. Our little rutabaga. I'm going to put these about 6 to 8 inches apart in here, and I have pre-moistened the soil. Oh, this bed is falling apart. We are going to talk about this. So about this garden bed, we have these two U-shaped beds that we put in the garden space here in 2020. I had mentioned that the shorter beds were put in 2015 by the previous owner, but Levi and I built these in 2020. We decided to go with untreated wood because just the idea of planting next to those specific chemicals, I wasn't comfortable with it, and I'm still not. If it's what you have to do to get by, I'm pretty sure I've seen different articles and things that say that it's okay. It's just a matter of preference. I'm not particularly fond of the idea. So we decided to go with untreated wood. My husband builds things for a living, and he said, if you're going to be putting moist soil next to untreated wood, it's not going to last maybe 5 years. And we are on year 4, and they're crumbling. They actually are crumbling worse than we really thought that they would 4 years in. They didn't last as long as even my husband thought that they would. And earlier in the year, some of you may remember, I had what I called flying ants in this bed. See how bad and crumbly this bed is? It's just falling apart. And there was a commenter that said, Heather, flying ants is termites. And I was like, no, it's not. It's carpenter ants. That's not termites. It's fine. So since then, I've had someone crawl under our house to deal with a different issue, and he found termites underneath of our house. And they might have come initially from this bed, because apparently termites are attracted to like moist conditions, moist wood, and so this bed here likely just drew them in as the perfect home. They decided once they were done kind of helping break it down that they wanted to move on, and now we've had to spend hundreds of dollars to treat our home for termites. Now the termites could have showed up at our house regardless if we had this bed here or not. Clearly they were looking for a new home, and our home suited them well. But it's just one of those things that we have that's helped solidify the idea that we've had since then, that we really need to not, if we have the means, we need to not skimp out on just buying quality or putting in quality in the very beginning, because it saves us a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of hassle later on, because now these are just falling apart under us. I am going to plant them as long as I can, but it may just end up being kind of this weird mound of soil at some point. And we had talked about putting cedar boards around this existing bed and just allowing it to break down. And I don't think that that's really the route that we're going to go. I think we've discovered another option, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Ugh, this poor bed. we go. Now we're at the part where we need to keep the kitty cats out of this bed. So my husband recently purchased these inexpensive chopsticks. And if we can make it to where it's uncomfortable for the cat to come in here and squat, then we will have achieved our goal. There we go. Is this excessive? Probably. Will it work? Probably. You can see the state of our beds. Again, this is after 4 years of growing in them. Falling apart. Here's another example. This is the same bed, just on the other side. That's probably lettuce volunteers, but as you can see, it's got problems. So I definitely do regret using untreated wood in these beds. Now, would I want to use treated wood instead of something like cedar or a metal raised bed? No. No, I still don't think that I want to grow in treated beds if I don't have to. Now, these beds were here when we moved in, and we decided we would just make do, and when they broke down, we'd replace them with something else. But I have something else over here, which you guys did get a peek of it in the background of a video not long ago. But this here is something that I think is going to be a game changer for those of us that don't want to use treated wood, but also maybe you're not into the aesthetic of those metal raised beds like the birdies beds that I have, or maybe you don't have a ton of tools or the capable hands to handle tools and things like that to put it together. This particular raised bed was sent to me by Epic Gardening. It is cedar, and you can put it together in 3 minutes with no tools. Now, I haven't filled it up yet, and we are going to talk about why that is, but this raised bed is really cool. It's modular. You can actually see right here different ways that you can put it together. This was part of the extension kit. So the original raised bed was 3 feet by 3 feet, and then you can purchase additional extension kits to really build the shape that you'd like. You can see here these notches. This is a dovetail joint in here, so it's very sturdy. You can see how this support beam is in there, and it's not going anywhere. Very slick. It was very easy to put together, and I'm excited about it because it's going to give me a different aesthetic in this part of the garden. This is the kids' old garden that I have been slowly trying to take back, and I have been wanting a tea garden for the longest time. So I think that this is going to be the start to my tea garden for next year. That's a rose over there. She's looking sad. I will be planting her in this bed once I get it filled up. We really enjoy our metal raised beds, but this just has a different look, a different appeal, a different style. There's actually more ways to configure these beds. You could, if we wanted to, we could do like a zigzag down the garden if we wanted. We could do a U-shaped bed if we wanted. You can put basically an unlimited amount of extension kits out. You could make it as big or as small as you wanted or needed for your space. And again, it's Western red cedar, and so you're not going to be attracting any critters that you don't want, and it's going to hold up just as long as the metal beds, but they take a lot less time to put together. So I do have a link for these. It is an affiliate link that's in the description box and in the pinned comment. Don't forget to stack our coupon code because you can get a discount. Now, when it comes to filling the beds, this is where I really like to use mostly the resources that I have at hand. And this is the next important topic that I would really like to discuss with you guys. Over here we have a wild situation that I need to tame. I actually have some grapevines on these trellises back here. They are Carlos muscadine grapes, and I have allowed some volunteer tomatoes to take over more than I really should have, because they're not only likely robbing nutrients from the grape, but now at this point they're starting to rob light. That's a thistle right there, I think, that I need to take out. But I have a lot of these yellow currant tomatoes that volunteer on my property all the time. We actually have a lot of volunteer fruit that comes up on our homestead all the time, and I really enjoy it. It was either in the last garden tour or some video recently where I mentioned about how I'm just getting tired of trying to keep on top of all of the cherry tomatoes. These particular plants are so prolific that they just put on tons and tons of fruit. It falls off the plant really easily, and that's how they come back so often. It's genuinely impossible to stay on top of them. So I had mentioned how my kids had been coming and partaking of them, but even they're starting to get tired. And I had a couple comments suggesting that I basically open my garden up to the public, because the public would love to come and pay, you know, a certain fee, either per pint or a certain fee for a certain amount of time, to pick some cherry tomatoes, because these are some things that you can't get at the grocery store. These specific tomatoes you can't. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad idea, if that is what someone feels led to do or wants to do. But as I mentioned, one of the reasons that this tomato comes back on my homestead every year is because I don't pick it like that. I do allow a lot of the fruit to fall. And what that does is the fruit will not only put its seeds in the bed and potentially come back next year, but everything around the seed in this fruit helps nourish the soil that it's growing in. So really, these tomatoes are kind of a perfect picture of like a sustainable loop. They grow, they produce fruit, the fruit falls, the fruit nourishes the ground, it feeds the earthworms that are in the bed, and it deposits its seed. And because the fruit dropped as well as the seeds, the beds are already fed, and the cycle can just repeat basically endlessly, and our whole garden gets to benefit from that. So let's say I did allow people to come in and pick the tomatoes, and maybe I would get $5 a pint or something, and $5 could be really useful. But also it takes time to facilitate stuff like that, to put up an ad for it, to be here for that, to collect cash or whatever. To some people, they like side hustles like that, and I really don't. But also I'd be missing out on allowing this nutrition to go back down into the bed, and I could use that $5 that I got in order to go purchase some outside inputs in order to amend the beds. But all of that just is way more work. It is absolutely okay to leave something like this and allow it to feed the soil. It's kind of one of those ways where people ask me all the time, Heather, how do you do it all? It's because I don't necessarily do it all. In a situation like this, I'm allowing the plants to kind of maintain the space for themselves. It looks crazy, but it is healthy, and there's a lot of nutrients going down into the bed, and we get to look forward to little treasures like this next year, guaranteed. So I'm going to set up my tripod, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to clean this out and actually put these plants in that cedar bed over there. I'm not noticing any blight or any kind of disease that I would be worried about adding into the soil over there. Inevitably, some of these tomatoes are going to fall. As I mentioned, that's okay, and we get to use these volunteer plants to help cut down the cost of filling that up. All that's really left over here right now is grass, of course, and our grape that we want to leave in there, but I don't really want to be moving grass roots or anything into there. It's pretty funny. As I was walking around taking out the tomato vines, it sounded like I was stepping all over bubble wrap, just all those tomatoes popping under my feet. And I understand the idea or the notion that you don't want to waste food, but I really want to impress upon you thinking about your homestead food differently, thinking about how you can create a closed loop system out of your homegrown produce to where you're having to bring in far fewer outside inputs. Quality materials to make things like these cedar beds are not cheap, and so if we can think of ways that we can use the things off of our land in order to make garden less expensive, we get to have the benefit of quality beds and things like this, and we can cut the cost on filling them by using things off of our land. And really, this is the best time of year for something like that. A lot of us have overgrown gardens with crazy things in them that really add up to organic matter and nutrients and things that could really benefit us next season. garden. So for right now, that's what I'm doing with this new raised bed. I'm using this as sort of a compost bin, and these things are gonna break down over winter. It would be best to kind of cut them into small pieces. They would break down faster. I will say with things like tomato vines and flower stems and things, it's a lot easier to break them up after they've died back and dried up a little bit. So I will be doing that. I'll probably just send the kids in here and let them dance around on the vines as they have dried up. But this is a really great start into getting this bed filled and turning it into the tea garden for next year. Also, Jackie and I wanted to leave you with a tip. If you've got green all over your hands from dealing with tomatoes, a really great way to get the tomato tar off your hands is just to use some white vinegar. You gotta stay out of the garden bed, right? We'll see.